Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work as a private investigator. Started back in 1996 when I was fresh out of the police academy, but realized desk work wasn't for me. I wanted action, mystery, the thrill of uncovering secrets. After 3 decades of tailing cheating spouses, insurance fraudsters, and missing persons, I developed a sixth sense for when someone was watching me. The irony of what happened today wasn't lost on me. Here I am, a guy who makes a living following people around, getting accused of stalking someone at the grocery store. It started like any normal Saturday. My son had called the night before asking if I could pick up pizza supplies. He's 25 now, but ever since he learned to make homemade pizza when he was 12, it became our weekend tradition. Even when he moved out, he still comes over every Saturday to make pizza and watch whatever game is on. We were running low on mozzarella, and he requested the good stuff from the deli section. I pulled into the parking lot of my usual supermarket around noon. Nothing fancy, just the neighborhood chain store I shop at. The place was busy but not packed, typical Saturday crowd. I grabbed a cart and headed straight to the deli section. The line wasn't too bad. I ordered a pound of turkey and some ham, then wandered over to the bakery area right next to it. They make fresh pizza dough there, and my son swears it's better than anything you can get from the freezer section. I picked up 2 bowls of dough and tossed them in my cart. After that, I did what I always do, took a meandering walk through the store. Old habits from the job, I suppose. I never take the direct route anywhere. Picked up some chips, grabbed a 6-pack of beer, threw in some of those fancy crackers my wife likes. Normal grocery shopping stuff. The cheese section was on the complete opposite side of the store from where I started. I pushed my cart over there, scanning the refrigerated cases for the 5-pound bag of shredded mozzarella my son prefers. Found it on the bottom shelf and bent down to grab it. That's when this woman behind me started up. She called out to me loudly, getting my attention in an aggressive way. I turned around, expecting maybe she wanted to reach something behind me or ask where I found an item. I politely asked if I could help her with anything. I was prepared for the typical entitled customer routine. You know the type, demanding I help them shop because I look like I work there, or insisting I move my cart so they can get to something. But this was different. She accused me of following her, which completely caught me off guard. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I asked her what she meant. She stepped closer, getting right in my personal space. I could smell her perfume, something floral and way too strong. She demanded to know why I was following her. I told her I wasn't following her, but she wasn't buying it. Her voice kept getting louder and shriller. She insisted that I was lying. She pointed out that she had been in the deli section and I was there, and now she was in the cheese section and here I was again. She kept demanding to know why I was stalking her. By now, other shoppers were starting to stare. Some guy with his kid had stopped pretending to look at yogurt and was watching our interaction. An elderly woman pushing her cart had paused near the milk section, clearly trying to figure out if she needed to call security. I was tired. It had been a long week of surveillance work, sitting in my car for hours tracking an insurance case, and the last thing I wanted was some paranoid woman making a scene in the grocery store. She was getting more agitated by the second, and I could see this escalating fast. But then something clicked. All those years of experience, all those cases I worked, all those cheating spouses I caught, they taught me something about human behavior. This woman wasn't just paranoid. She was scared, really scared. And people that scared, especially about being followed, usually have a reason. So I looked her straight in the eyes and delivered the line that would either diffuse this situation or make it 10 times worse. I told her that I wasn't following her unless she happened to be cheating on her husband. Then I explained that I was actually a private investigator. The change in her expression was instant and dramatic. All the color drained from her face. Her mouth fell open and she took a step back, like I just told her I was a grim reaper. She started stammering, trying to deny something but not really making sense. She was completely flustered now. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out if this was some cosmic coincidence, or if she actually got caught. I told her that I was just there buying cheese for my son's pizza night, but if she was really that concerned about being followed, maybe she should think about why that might be. I turned and walked away, pushing my cart toward the checkout. Behind me, I could hear her trying to stammer out some kind of response, but I didn't look back. As I was loading my groceries onto the conveyor belt, I looked back toward the cheese section and saw her on her phone, speaking in hushed, frantic tones. From her body language and the way she kept looking around nervously, I was pretty sure she wasn't calling her husband. When I walked out to my car, I chuckled. After 30 years in this business, I learned that the people who are most paranoid about being followed are usually the ones who should be. Whether she was actually cheating or just had a guilty conscience about something else, I'd never know. But one thing was certain, she'd think twice before accusing random shoppers of stalking her again. After my divorce 3 years ago, I threw myself into creating a small sanctuary in my backyard. Gardening became my therapy. Every weekend, I'd spend hours planning what to plant, researching the best soil conditions, and carefully tending to each flower bed. My neighbors always complimented me on how beautiful my yard looked, and it made me proud. This spring, I planted a whole section of heirloom roses, delphiniums, and peonies that cost me nearly $300 in plants and soil amendments. I babied those flowers like they were my children. This morning started like any other Saturday. I made my usual cup of coffee and settled into my favorite chair by the kitchen window. The morning sun was hitting my garden just right, and I was admiring how the roses were finally starting to bloom when I noticed movement in my yard. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery person or someone looking for a lost pet, but when I looked closer, my jaw dropped. There was a woman I'd never seen before standing right in the middle of my flower bed, holding a handful of my roses and reaching for more. She had a whole bouquet already gathered in one arm and was casually picking through my garden like it was some kind of public park. I rushed outside still in my pajamas and slippers and demanded to know what she was doing. She looked up at me with this bright smile, completely unbothered, and cheerfully explained that the flowers were so pretty she thought I wouldn't mind if she took some. She mentioned she was having a dinner party that night and needed flowers for the centerpiece. I stood there for a moment, completely stunned. I told her that I absolutely did mind because these were my flowers on my private property. She waved off my concern, saying that I had so many flowers and they were just going to die anyway. She claimed she was actually doing me a favor by enjoying them. She continued picking, completely ignoring my obvious distress. I watched her grab one of my prized peonies that had taken 2 years to finally bloom. I told her to stop and demanded that she leave my property immediately. She rolled her eyes and called me selfish, saying they were just flowers and not like she was taking anything valuable. I was getting angrier by the second. I explained that those roses she was holding cost me $40 each, not counting the soil, fertilizer, and months of care I put into them. She looked at me like I was crazy and said $40 for a plant was stupid, that you could get flowers at the grocery store for $5. I sarcastically suggested that maybe she should go to the grocery store instead of stealing from my yard. She got defensive and said she wasn't stealing because stealing implied something valuable was taken, and these were just plants growing in the dirt. This woman was unbelievable. I threatened to call the police if she didn't get off my property immediately. She acted shocked and asked if I was really going to call the police over some flowers, calling me completely unreasonable. She finally stopped picking but made no move to leave. Instead, she stood there clutching my flowers like they belonged to her. She tried to negotiate, saying she'd already picked them and it would be wasteful to throw them away. She promised she wouldn't take any more if I let her keep what she'd already taken. I told her absolutely not and demanded she put them down and leave. She had the nerve to lecture me about how selfish I was being, betting that I didn't even appreciate the flowers properly, and asking when I'd last cut some for my own house. I told her that wasn't the point and none of her business. Then she offered to pay me $10 for them. I pointed out that she just acknowledged they cost $40 each, and she was holding at least 6 roses plus other flowers. She claimed $10 was more than fair and accused me of being greedy. I'd had enough and pulled out my phone to call the police. She panicked and asked if I was really going to waste their time over this. I explained that she was trespassing on my property and stealing my belongings, which was exactly what police were for. When I started talking to the dispatcher, her whole attitude changed, and she suddenly looked panicked. She quickly said she'd put the flowers back, but started shoving them back into the soil even though they were already cut and wilting. My beautiful roses were ruined. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. Karen tried to charm the officer, explaining how it was all just a misunderstanding and that she didn't know it was such a big deal. But when the officer asked if she had permission to be in my yard, she had to admit she didn't. The officer explained to her that this was private property and she couldn't just take someone's plants without permission. She protested that they were just flowers, but he told her they were someone else's flowers, which made it theft. The officer took down all our information and explained to Karen that she could be cited for trespassing and petty theft. She started crying then, claiming she was just trying to make her dinner party nice and couldn't afford expensive flowers. She said she was a single mother and just wanted something beautiful for her guests. The officer told her she should have asked permission first or bought her own flowers. In the end, Karen had to pay me $200 to cover the cost of replacing the damaged plants. Plus, she got a citation for trespassing. She kept crying about how unfair it was, but the officer wasn't having it. He told her to stick to her own garden or the flower shop next time. She walked away, still sniffling about how mean people are these days, and I surveyed the damage to my garden. It would take months to get everything back to how it was, but at least I had some compensation for new plants. The only real joy in my daily routine is my cat, Whiskers. She's a beautiful orange tabby I rescued from a shelter 3 years ago. The poor thing had been returned twice because previous owners said she was too energetic and couldn't stay inside. Perfect for me, since I believe cats should have some outdoor freedom. My house sits on a corner lot with a decent-sized backyard that backs up to several other properties. Whiskers loves to explore the yard, climb trees, and chase squirrels. She's never caught one, mind you. She's all bark and no bite when it comes to hunting, but she loves the thrill of the chase. The problem started about 6 months ago when Karen moved in next door. From day one, she made it clear she didn't appreciate any disruptions to her precious lawn. This woman spent hours every day tending to her grass like it was made of gold. She had signs posted everywhere warning people to stay off her property and even installed security cameras pointed at the property line. The first incident happened on a Tuesday morning. I was working on a logo design when I heard shouting outside. I looked out my window and saw Karen standing at the fence separating our yards, screaming at Whiskers, who was sitting calmly in my own backyard. Karen yelled at me that my mangy cat had been in her yard again and demanded I keep it contained or she would call animal control. I tried explaining that Whiskers was just being a cat and wasn't hurting anything, but Karen shot back that the cat was disturbing her lawn care and she didn't want that thing anywhere near her property. I tried explaining that cats naturally roam and that Whiskers wasn't causing any damage, but Karen wasn't having it. She stormed back into her house, slamming the door so hard I'm surprised it didn't fall off its hinges. Over the next few weeks, the complaints escalated. Karen would bang on my door at all hours, claiming Whiskers was trespassing and terrorizing her yard. She started leaving nasty notes on my car and even called the homeowners association to complain about nuisance pets. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning in early spring. I was having my coffee on the back porch when I noticed Whiskers had spotted a particularly plump squirrel in Karen's oak tree. Before I could call her back, she darted across the property line in hot pursuit. That's when I heard the most terrifying sound, a lawnmower roaring to life. I looked up to see Karen charging out of her garage, pushing a massive riding mower at full speed. But instead of heading toward her grass, she was driving straight toward Whiskers, who was now crouched under the oak tree, confused by all the noise. Karen screamed that she'd had enough of this and it was time to solve this problem permanently. My heart stopped. This woman was literally trying to run over my cat with a lawnmower. I jumped off my porch and sprinted toward the fence, screaming at the top of my lungs for her to stop. But Karen was in full rage mode, bouncing on that mower like she was riding a mechanical bull. Whiskers, thank God, had the sense to bolt. She shot out from under the tree just as Karen came barreling through, missing her by inches. The chase continued across Karen's yard, with her revving that mower engine and trying to corner my terrified cat. I was running along the fence line, trying to find a way to get into her yard to help. That's when Karma decided to step in. Karen was so focused on chasing Whiskers that she didn't notice the decorative rock border around her prized rose garden. The front wheel of the mower caught the edge of a particularly large stone, and the whole machine lurched sideways. Karen went flying off that mower like she'd been shot from a cannon. She landed hard on her precious lawn with a sickening thud, and I could hear her scream of pain from 50 feet away. The mower, meanwhile, kept going without her. It crashed straight into her garden shed, demolishing half the structure before finally shutting off. Whiskers, probably realizing the immediate danger was over, calmly walked back to our yard and started grooming herself like nothing had happened. I grabbed my phone and called 911, because despite everything, I wasn't going to let someone suffer without help. The paramedics arrived within minutes and confirmed what we all suspected. Karen had broken her leg in 2 places. When they were loading her into the ambulance, Karen was still screaming threats at me. She yelled that this was all my fault and that she was going to sue me for everything I had. She called my cat a menace and demanded it be destroyed. The paramedic told her she needed to calm down because her blood pressure was through the roof. But Karen said she didn't care and still wanted that cat destroyed. The police officer who responded to the call was taking notes and asked me to explain what happened. I told him everything, and thankfully, several other neighbors had witnessed the whole incident. The officer seemed confused and asked me to confirm that she had actually chased my cat with a riding lawnmower. I told him that was exactly what happened, and that I had it on my security camera if he needed proof. Turns out, that security footage was worth its weight in gold. Not only did it clearly show Karen deliberately trying to harm Whiskers, but it also captured her trespassing on my property multiple times over the past few months, stealing packages from my porch and dumping yard waste in my garbage cans. Within a week, Karen was facing charges for animal cruelty, harassment, and property damage to her own shed. Her homeowner's insurance refused to cover the shed repair since she was operating the mower in a reckless and intentional manner. While she was laid up with her broken leg, her precious lawn went unwatered during a particularly hot spell. By the time she was mobile enough to tend to it again, half her grass had died and would need to be completely replanted. Karen ended up moving out 2 months later. I heard she couldn't afford the repairs to her shed and the lawn renovation on top of her medical bills. The house has been empty ever since, and Whiskers has reclaimed her favorite squirrel watching spot under that oak tree. She still hasn't caught a single one, but she seems pretty satisfied with how things turned out. My husband and I are both huge fans of fantasy novels and movies. It's actually how we bonded when we first started dating 3 years ago. We'd spend hours discussing our favorite characters and storylines. When we got married almost 2 years ago, we knew we wanted to start a family right away. When I found out I was pregnant, we were over the moon. At my 20-week ultrasound, we discovered we were having a girl. That night, we sat on our couch with a baby name book and our laptops, brainstorming names. I had always loved strong female characters in fiction, and there was one name that immediately came to mind. It was a character from our favorite fantasy series who was brave, intelligent, and fierce. My husband's eyes lit up when I suggested it. He said it was perfect, that she was such an incredible character, and that the name was beautiful too. I told him I'd loved that name since I was 16 years old, and that I always thought if I had a daughter someday, I'd want to name her after someone so strong. We spent the next few weeks discussing it, but honestly, no other name even came close. This was it. This was our daughter's name. When we told our families, most everyone was thrilled. My mother-in-law seemed pleased but had some questions about the spelling and pronunciation. She wanted to make sure there wouldn't be any confusion since it's not a super common name in our area. She asked me if I was sure about the spelling and whether people would always get it wrong. I told her there was really only one accepted spelling and that the pronunciation was straightforward. She then brought up an alternative spelling she'd seen online, but I explained that would actually change the pronunciation completely. I told her our way was the correct way from the books, and it flowed better with our last name. We had a whole conversation about it, and I explained the literary background and why this particular spelling mattered to us. She seemed to understand by the end. Our daughter was born 11 months ago, and she's been the light of our lives. She's just started cruising around furniture, taking those adorable wobbly steps while holding on to couches and tables. Her personality is already shining through. She's curious, determined, and has this infectious laugh that fills up any room. Last weekend, we went to my in-laws' house for dinner. My brother-in-law and his wife were there too. We were all sitting in the living room after eating, watching our daughter make her way around the coffee table. She kept looking back at us to make sure we were watching, then giggling when we cheered her on. My sister-in-law commented on how absolutely glowing our daughter looked and said she really lived up to her name, looking so radiant and strong-willed already. My brother-in-law agreed, saying she was going to be a force to be reckoned with, just like her namesake. Then my sister-in-law added that my mother-in-law had really picked the perfect name for her. I felt like someone had just thrown ice water on me. I stared at her for a moment, thinking I must have misheard. I asked her what she had just said, and she repeated that my mother-in-law had recommended the name right. She said it was such a good choice. I looked over at my mother-in-law, who was smiling and nodding. She said that, yes, she had suggested it, and that it was a lovely name. My mouth fell open. This woman was sitting there in front of everyone, claiming credit for naming my daughter. The name I had chosen, that I had loved for years, that came from books that shaped who I am. I asked her if she had really suggested it. I said that wasn't what happened at all. She responded that we had all discussed it as a family and that names are a collective effort. I told her no, they weren't. I explained that I had come up with this name, that I'd loved this character since I was 16 years old, and that I had told her about the books and why this name meant so much to me. I reminded her that she had questioned the spelling. The room got very quiet. My husband looked uncomfortable shifting in his seat. I asked him to tell them what really happened and reminded him how excited I was when I first suggested the name. He said that I was right, that I had come up with the name. He said we both loved the character, but it was my idea. My mother-in-law said that names are a family decision and that everyone contributes ideas and input. She said she had supported the choice. I told her that supporting a choice and claiming you made the choice were two completely different things. I explained that this name was special to me and that I hadn't asked for recommendations. I had told her what we had decided. My sister-in-law started to say she just thought something, but I cut her off. I told her she had thought wrong. I said I couldn't believe she would try to take credit for naming my child when she knew that wasn't what happened. The tension in the room was thick. My daughter, oblivious to the drama, continued her happy exploration of the furniture. My brother-in-law tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. We left shortly after, and the car ride home was awkward. My husband kept looking at me but didn't say much until we got home and put our daughter to bed. Once we were in our bedroom, his phone started buzzing with texts. He told me his mom and sister were upset. I said I was upset too because she had tried to steal credit for naming our daughter. He said he had backed me up because I was right about what happened, but asked if I had to make such a big deal about it in front of everyone. I asked him if it was a big deal that she was lying about how our daughter got her name, and whether I was supposed to just sit there and let her rewrite history. He said we knew the truth and that our daughter had a beautiful name that suited her perfectly. He asked why I had to turn it into something that caused family drama. I told him because the truth mattered, because that name meant something to me, and I wouldn't let anyone else claim they gave it to her. The next day, my husband had his regular phone call with his mother. When he hung up, I could tell from his expression that she was still angry. I asked if she was still mad, and he said she was. He said she thought I had embarrassed her in front of the family. I told him she had embarrassed herself by lying. He said he understood why I corrected her, but maybe it wasn't the right time or place. But here's the thing. There's never a right time to let someone steal credit for something so personal. That name represents my love for literature, my hopes for my daughter's future, and the connection my husband and I share over the stories that brought us together. A few days later, my sister-in-law called to clear the air. My mother-in-law had been telling people at her book club and church that she had helped name the baby. She'd been taking credit for weeks, maybe months. My sister-in-law said she just wanted to feel involved with the grandbaby. I told her then she should have asked to be involved instead of lying about being involved. She asked if I couldn't just let her have this since it made her happy. I told her no. I explained that it was my daughter's name, my choice, my story. I said she could be involved in a million other ways, but she didn't get to rewrite how my child got her name. The final straw came when my husband showed me his phone. He'd been browsing social media and came across a post I'd made on a parenting forum about the whole situation, asking if I was wrong for standing up for myself. He told me he'd found my post and wanted everyone to know that he had never called me wrong for defending myself. He said I was right, and he should have shut it down immediately instead of letting me handle it alone. That meant everything to me. I'm 29 and getting married this Saturday, August 16th. After 3 years of planning, saving every penny, and dealing with venue changes thanks to my future in-laws drama, everything was finally coming together. My dress fits perfectly, the flowers are ordered, and the caterer confirmed everything twice. All I wanted was a simple, beautiful ceremony with the people I love most. My sister has always been special to me. She's 4 years younger, and we've been through everything together. When our parents divorced when she was 15, I helped her through it. When she dropped out of college to pursue her passion for organic farming, I supported her even when everyone else called her crazy. So naturally, when I got engaged, she was the first person I asked to be a bridesmaid. She works at this sustainable farm about an hour outside the city. It's hard physical work, hauling equipment, working in the greenhouse, dealing with compost and livestock. She comes home every day covered in dirt and sweat, which is totally fine. I respect her career choice and the fact that she is doing something she believes in. About 2 weeks ago, she mentioned something about participating in this natural living challenge with her co-workers. They were all trying to use fewer chemicals and live more like people did centuries ago. Part of this challenge involved washing their hair less frequently to let their scalp's natural oils do their job. I thought it was just a phase. You know how she is with these wellness trends. Last year it was drinking celery juice every morning. The year before that it was oil pulling. I figured she'd get tired of it and move on. Then last Tuesday, exactly 10 days before my wedding, she came over for our final dress fitting. The moment she walked through the door, I could smell something off. Her usually gorgeous long brown hair looked stringy and had this greasy, unwashed appearance. When I hugged her, the smell hit me full force. I asked her when she had last washed her hair. She told me it was August 6th and asked why I wanted to know. I stared at her. August 6th was 6 days ago at that point. I asked if she really hadn't washed her hair in almost a week. She explained that it was part of her natural living challenge and that she wasn't planning to wash it until August 20th. She said her scalp needed time to reset its oil production. My stomach dropped. August 20th was 4 days after my wedding. I asked if she was being serious and pointed out that she'd be in my wedding photos looking like that. She got defensive and asked what I meant by like that, insisting there was nothing wrong with natural hair. I tried to stay calm during the fitting, but all I could think about was how she'd look standing next to me in the photos that would hang in our house for the rest of our lives. The photographer cost us $3,000. My wedding dress cost $2,000. We've been planning this day for 3 years. That night, I called our mom for advice. Mom has always been diplomatic with my sister's phases, but even she sounded concerned. She suggested that maybe I could recommend some natural alternatives like apple cider vinegar rinses. I spent the next day researching natural hair care methods, hoping to find a compromise. I found articles about natural shampoos made from Castile soap, baking soda treatments, even clay washes that would clean her hair without using commercial chemicals. When I presented these options to her the next day, she shut me down. She told me she wasn't going to break her commitment and that this was important to her. She said if I were really supportive, I would understand. I explained that this was important to me too because it was my wedding day. She brushed off my concerns, saying it was just one day and that her hair would be beautiful naturally. But it wasn't beautiful. By Friday, just one day before the wedding, her hair looked absolutely terrible. It was flat against her scalp, visibly greasy, and the smell was getting stronger. She worked another full day at the farm, came straight to the rehearsal dinner, and I watched people's faces when they hugged her. My future mother-in-law actually stepped back and made a face. That's when I knew I had to do something. After the rehearsal, I pulled her aside privately. I asked her one more time to please wash her hair the next morning before the ceremony. I told her she could use whatever natural product she wanted, but I begged her to please clean it. She refused again and called me a bridezilla for making such a big deal about this. The word hit me like a slap. Bridezilla. Because wanting my sister to practice basic hygiene for my wedding made me a demanding monster. I told her I wasn't being a bridezilla and that I was simply asking her to wash her hair, which was basic hygiene. She argued that this was about her body autonomy and her commitment to natural living. She accused me of trying to control her. I shot back that I was just trying to have a nice wedding without my bridesmaid smelling like she hadn't bathed in weeks. She got even angrier and said that if my appearance was so offensive to me, maybe she shouldn't be in my wedding at all. That's when something snapped in me. All the stress of wedding planning, all the compromises I'd made for everyone else, all the money we'd spent, and she was threatening to bail because I asked her to wash her hair. I told her she was absolutely right. If washing her hair was too much to ask, then maybe she shouldn't be in my wedding. Her face went white. She asked if I was really kicking her out of my wedding. I explained that I was giving her a choice. She could wash her hair and stand up with me as planned, or she could attend as a guest. But I made it clear that I wasn't going to have my wedding photos ruined because she decided this was the hill to die on. She stormed out, and I didn't hear from her until the next morning. At 7 a.m., 3 hours before the ceremony, she called me. She told me she had washed her hair and would be at the church in an hour. She showed up with clean, gorgeous hair styled exactly how we'd planned. She looked absolutely beautiful, and nobody would have ever known there had been any drama. We took amazing photos, had a perfect ceremony, and danced until midnight. During her maid of honor speech, she actually addressed the situation. She told everyone that I had taught her that week that sometimes love means knowing when to compromise. She admitted she had thought standing her ground was more important than standing by my side, but she realized she was wrong. She said I wasn't being difficult, and that I was just asking her to be her best self for my biggest day. The whole room laughed, and several people came up to me later saying how refreshing it was to hear such honesty. My sister and I hugged afterward, and she admitted that her hair felt amazing clean, and that she'd been starting to gross herself out too. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.